Good morning. I'm Shelley Maley with Dreamcatcher Career Coaching, and this is my podcast, Young Professionals Career Catalyst. My guest today is Ann Zuckerman, inventor and owner of Bezi Bra Discs. Ann is a fourth generation retailer and host of the I Just Wanted to Ask podcast. Welcome to the Young Professionals Career Catalyst, Ann. So excited to speak with you today.
Thank you so very much, Shelley. I'm happy to be here.
So let's talk, before we talk about what you're doing nowadays, let's talk about your childhood. What did you envision doing? What kind of career did you think about when you were a kid?
To tell you the truth, I had absolutely no idea. The crazy part was that I was raised by my mother and my grandparents because my parents were divorced.
Mhm.
And they assumed that I would go into the family business, which was a lingerie shop.
Okay.
My father, on the other hand, when I went to visit him, he was convinced that I would never amount to anything, that I just wasn't smart enough or capable enough to do anything.
Oh,
So if I had any dreams of anything, um, they weren't even in the picture
oh, that's a
because
shame.
I was going to work in the lingerie shop.
Right.
And when I graduated from high school and was going to college, my mom and my grandmother sat me down because they worked together. And they said, "So, when you finish college, you will, of course, come back and work with us in the store." And I said, "Of course not.
I bet that went over well.
I'm off and running. I'm not coming back." At which point, my grandmother just about passed out. My mother was ready to kill me.
Well, you were following your own dreams, right?
I was, but the thing was that I still majored in those days. I was in I got an associate degree in retailing because that was a thing then. So I was still in retailing. I was still in business, but I went to work for a department store.
Well, I'm sure they love that. So you've indicated you are a fourth generation retailer. So tell us more about your family business and how that's shaped what you do today.
Sure. So this is the story I heard. My great grandfather on my mother's side had a haberdashery in Hungary. And when he died, his wife, my great grandmother, took over the business. Unheard of. I
Yes.
can't imagine. My grandmother um, didn't really want to be part of that business, but she had an amazing business sense. And my grandmother and grandfather uh, actually were behind my mother's opening her business. I should add that my grandfather, my mother's stepfather, who raised me, had his own delicatessen. So he was also in a retail business. And they encouraged my mother to open her business in the 50s. And they were the backbone behind her business. She
Mhm.
was trained in corset making and design, but they had the business skills. So they were the ones who set up the books, they took care of the billing, and they coached my mom every single day. I mean, conversation at the dinner table when I was growing up was all about what happened in the store, who were the customers, what their needs were, what we had, what we needed, and how the business was running.
Okay. That's interesting. So I'm sure in the 50s that was unusual, even at that point, for a woman to own a business and have her own thing, right?
It wasn't that unusual. My mom's store was on a very small street in Princeton, New Jersey, and next door there was a fabric shop owned by a woman as well.
Oh, okay.
So they became very good friends, and every people walked back and forth. It was amazing. So, but The interesting part of my mother's business, and this leads me into what I eventually got into, is that she didn't in at that point in time, she and my grandparents, there was no way they could get money from the bank.
Mhm.
The bank wasn't didn't want to well, wasn't encouraging for women. They the three of them had enough money to rent the space. They
Okay.
didn't have a whole lot of money for merchandise. So the great part of this story is that in those days, women wore regular stockings, not pantyhose, but stockings. They came in shoe sizes. My mother bought 3 pairs of stockings in all of the different sizes, but asked the sales rep to send her a bunch of empty boxes, which he did.
Okay.
And so on one wall in the store, they had an enormous stack of stocking boxes. Some of them had X's on them, and the boxes with the X's had merchandise in them.
Okay.
And the first day they were open, my grandmother sold 3 pairs of size 6.5. And and she ran back to my mom and said, "We're all out of 6.5. We need to buy more." But the thing the thing that I would like to share with people is that that was creative thinking. In her
Yes.
store window, she didn't have money for mannequins. So she had tree branches that were painted black and merchandise hanging off them. So
Oh,
that was an example for me. I saw strong women making the best of what they had, being creative, and being successful.
wow. They must have been such an inspiration to you. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you eventually went on and you became an inventor of something called the bra disc. So what events led you to decide to invent something like that?
Well, my mom was really good to me, but she didn't buy me the building that the store was in. So eventually, there were a lot of circumstances that happened, including 9/11. And I had to, I had, at one point, I had to move the business, and I moved it to a place with an escalating rent structure. And my mom and I knew that that would be a challenge. My mom was still living then.
Mhm.
But then it became a real burden and I couldn't keep it. My mom had passed away. And as I said, she didn't buy me the building. So what ended up happening was I had to go out of business. But in the meantime, I had seen a product, the camouflage nipple protrusion, and said, I think I can do better.
Mhm.
And totally by chance, I met an industrial design engineer. And I said, I've seen something. I think I can do better. Can you help me?
Mhm.
And he said, well, let's talk. He then introduced me to a patent attorney.
Okay.
And that's how my product ended up becoming patented and launched.
Wow.
So I took everything I had, and I truly believe that if someone has an idea, if they can see their goal in mind, that they should be able to commit to that and do everything they can to get there.
Right.
And that's what I did. I didn't listen to any family, friends. No, well, I didn't tell anyone what I was doing,
Mhm.
so I didn't get the criticism,
Right.
and I just went for it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So when did you invent that? What year did you invent the bra discs?
Oh, good question. That I didn't check before I got on. It seems like forever, but it was close to 20 years ago.
Okay. Okay. So how does one go about getting a patent and how long does it usually take?
It takes a very long time. Um, Before you file for a patent, you have to do research to find out if there are any other patents in existence that are the same as what you're planning on patenting,
Mhm.
um, my suggestion is you can start doing the research through the patent office yourself.
Okay.
However, once you get past that, it's I think it's, and this is a personal opinion, I think it's a good idea to consult with a patent attorney
Okay.
for a number of different reasons. One is that they understand the law. The second is they also do their research, and uh, there may be some parts to it that you haven't considered.
True.
And the third and most important is they can word the application in such a way that it will be beneficial to you.
Right. Okay. They have enough experience in that type of work that they can protect you better, I'm sure, and help your patent come to fruition.
Exactly. Plus, the other part of that is if for any reason anyone questions your patent or says that you're in violation in any way, you've got attorney backing.
Yes, I'm sure that's very important. So, for anybody that may be thinking about an invention, what advice would you offer them?
Um, well, it takes a lot of guts. um, Years ago, someone said I had renovated a house, and the husband of a friend of mine came in and said, "Girl, you have a lot of guts." I said, "Actually, I don't. I had no idea what I was walking into, and so I just did it." Um, it is a financial commitment.
Yes.
So you have to be willing and able to do that. There are ways that you can get money, so it's not as it's difficult, but it's doable. No
Mhm.
matter who you are or where you are, it is doable. And as I said, get as much professional help as you can. There are a lot of networking groups where you can meet people and talk about not what you're planning on getting a patent for, because you don't want to
Right.
discuss that, but you can speak to a lot. There are a lot of people out there you can speak to about the process.
Okay.
And I have not yet, but on my page, I will add the name of an attorney who I haven't used. However, I know he's there. But having said that, it's not difficult to find patent attorneys in the United States.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So, we've called this episode Fail Fast, Turn Obstacles into Opportunities. Tell us what you mean by that.
Well, it's been in a uh, another group that I was part of, it was suggested that if you're going to try something, you want to fail fast. And the
Okay.
reason is because by failing fast, you learn fast.
True.
Once you have an obstacle in your way, you have two choices. You give up or use it as a learning experience. There's a podcaster named Steve Sims, and he says in his book, his father told him that people don't drown from falling in the water, they drown from staying there.
Okay.
So I truly believe that um, there's so much opportunity. And the other thing I will add to this conversation is I'm not exactly the youngest knife in the drawer. I just turned 75,
Oh my goodness.
and I have learned along the way. I mean, computers didn't exist when I was going to school.
Right.
Um, the software options were not available. The apps were not available,
Yes.
and I wanted to learn how to market my product. How do you learn to market your product? These days, you have to learn the digital world. And
Right.
I jumped into it with both feet. So I've had to learn a lot, and I keep growing. And if I find something that isn't working, I try to move as rapidly as possible into something else. And more important than anything else, to keep my eyes open. I think that all too often, and this was true when I was very young, these were your career options. And then once you got into that career option, that was it. You didn't change. This was your path.
Right.
In today's world, whatever you decide in terms of a career or your path, there's a lot of latitude. And your education is your education. No one can take that away from you. And you use that to move you forward.
Right.
And that's what I've been blessed to be able to do. I've used my wherewithal and the examples that I've seen around me to move in a direction that will move me forward.
That's wonderful. Yes, things have changed quite a bit, I'm sure, over the course of your life. So you have a podcast called I Just Wanted to Ask. So how long ago did you start your podcast?
My podcast is 2.5 years old.
Good for you.
It launched in April of 2022.
Okay.
And again, going back to everything I've just said, I had my bra discs, my Bezi Bra Discs. When I started, I was doing trade shows. That's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I learned I had to be active on social media, and I wasn't really comfortable with social media. And if you look at my Facebook page, my Instagram page, you don't see a lot there about me personally.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I had to get out there. And I was at a networking meeting and I met a wonderful lady named Cammie Lehman, who at that point hadn't even launched her podcast, but I knew that she was launching. So I started following her. 2 years later, I went to a different networking event where she was the guest speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And she had launched a podcast school, a 30-day podcast school.
Okay.
And I knew her, so I called her up and I said, listen, I don't want to host a podcast, but for my business, I think I'd like to guest on other people's podcasts. And she said, well, not my thing, but my school is opening up on Monday. And I thought, oh, great opportunity. I don't want to be a host, but I want to learn the whole podcast industry.
Okay.
Why not join the school? So I joined the school, and about the second session, she says, and in 28 days, you will have a podcast. And I said, no, I won't. I told her that. I said, in my mind, I was thinking, no, definitely not. But what came out of my mouth was, but. And Cammie said to me, in 30 days, you will have a podcast if I have to drag you over the finish line myself. And true to her word, in those days, it was 28 days. Now I think it's 30 days. But in 28 days or 30 days, I launched my podcast. And what I discovered was that my true passion is to help other business people promote their businesses.
Okay.
Because I have a very active imagination, and there are many squirrels living in the brain, my attic brain. And so I love hearing about what people are doing, how they created their businesses, how they've been successful. I speak to entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, and I also speak to authors. And when I speak to authors, I, of course, have to read the book.
Right.
So it just keeps me active and alive.
Right.
And there are a lot of older people who don't have that option.
Right.
And for me, every day is kid in a candy box. What's next?
That's amazing. It keeps you young and healthy, I'm sure.
Totally, totally.
So what's one piece of career advice you would give today's young professional or recent graduate to help them launch their career?
I think the most important thing is to always be open to possibility.
Okay.
No one knows where life is going to take them. Recently, I heard someone say, as soon as you say the word now, it's the past.
True.
So I would have never believed that I would have a patent. Um, my father was convinced that I wasn't smart enough to go to college, that I wasn't smart enough to do anything in business. And I don't think my mother really, she knew that I was creative, but
Mhm.
she believed in safety first in everything.
Okay.
Safety and stability. You didn't go outside the box. You didn't step outside the gates of the yard. You stayed in your lane.
Right.
I don't have that personality. I
Mhm.
can't stay in any lane.
Right.
So what I have said to young people is get an education, but use your ability to make the most of that education. And if something changes, be flexible enough to pivot.
Yeah, definitely. I am all about that because I myself have had 5 different careers in 3 different industries. So I can't imagine having stayed in one particular career my whole entire life. That would not have been very fulfilling for me personally. So things have changed, that's for sure.
That is, and you're never too young or too old
You're
to
right.
find a path. I
You're
mean,
exact
that to me is amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
there are 5, 6, 7 year olds who have amazing ideas that become businesses.
right.
And I recently interviewed an author who published her first book after the age of 80.
Oh, wow.
So
Amazing.
think about the possibilities. And when people come to my website, no one knows how old or how young I am,
True. Yep, that's right.
except that I keep telling them.
So what's next for you?
Okay, what's next for me? I do also work with in network marketing, which gives me another outlet. And exploring that, that's one other area that young people can look into. In that, network marketing companies do have all of these systems in place, and it's a good place to learn about different types of businesses. So I do that as well, and I'm still selling my bra discs to people all over the country. They're available through Shopify, and so people are buying them online. And I have some resellers on Amazon who sell my product. So that's another opportunity that I never imagined.
Right.
And I'm not ready to stop yet.
And you shouldn't have to. So, what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you, Anne?
One of my websites, I have several, but one of my websites is annzuckerman.com.
Okay.
And I will add some resources to that. I have not done that, but I will either later today or this week.
Okay.
Um, uh, People who I personally know, um, for anyone who's interested in getting information. And for anyone who wants more information, there is a way that they can book a discovery call with me. Uh, and I'll be happy to help in any way that I can.
Okay. That's wonderful to know. Thank you so much. And really appreciate that you were here today as my guest, Anne. To my audience, thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to watch, like, and comment on my earlier episodes of Young Professionals Career Catalyst on my YouTube channel. Tune in for the next episode of the Young Professionals Career Catalyst on Tuesday, July 9th at 8:30 a.m.